Hello, hello, my friends. AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my face and my card making space and my cards for this week's Color Throwdown Challenge. I will have a link to the challenge in my blog post, which is linked directly below the video. Just expand the description box. I'll have that link to my blog post. I will also have my supply list, links to all the supplies, links to my social media, all the things directly below. And yeah, fall colors, love. And I did some layering, stenciling, and some stamping and splattering, of course, and a bit of Lunar paste and metallic cardstock, all the things. I did all the things. It was a lot of fun. And yeah, that's all I have to say for the moment. My brain is just like, done. We're done. So just keep watching though, and I will explain and show you guys how I made these cards. So the first thing I did was I pulled out the thank you text background stamp, which came out ages ago. I've used it in just tons of videos. I love it for just adding like kind of background texture in a sense. And I inked up the stamp with Simon Says Stamps Fossil ink. This is their original ink formula, like aka oldie but goodie, and one of my favorites. I'm really worried they're gonna retire this one. And I'm just like, no, it's one of my favorites. I love it. Their original ink formula, for those that aren't aware, is not water reactive. You can actually stamp images and color them with Copic markers. I like it for things like this when I want to stamp things and then it's not going to react or smear or anything with everything I layer on top of it. And this color especially is just a good neutral. I like using this to stamp on like Nina Desert Storm cardstock, etc. It's just a favorite. And yeah, I think they're starting to retire some of their original inks because, you know, they've released the positively saturated inks and I'm just sad. But I'm going to keep this ink pad and I'm going to keep using it because I like it. So anyway, I stamped that text onto just panels of white cardstock. And then I put those panels onto my Waffle Flower grip mat because it holds the cardstock and it's holding my stencil. And I love. This is the big one. This is the 8.5-inch square grip mat. And I loves it. So the stencils are the Floral Whimsy layering stencil set from Simon. As of doing this voiceover, the set might be currently out of stock, but they'll restock ASAP. I'm not sure. I've got 5 million things I'm trying to keep track of all at once during this month, obviously. Anyway, I started with the greenery, and I'm using Concord and 9th inks for all my blending. I've talked about this before. These inks are very similar to Simon's Positively Saturated ink in terms of like the formula. I've talked about this. I think they play very nicely together, and I've done videos like using inks from both lines like interchangeably basically. The thing I like about the Concord and 9th ones is there's some more like deeper and muted colors. So I just think they kind of balance out Simon's Positively Saturated inks because Simon's inks so far are much brighter colors, which I love. But for this color combo, I was like, oh, these colors are perfect. So I'll have them all listed. But I was using avocado, spiced cider, nutmeg, poppy, and cranberry. And I was just working my way through with these layered stencils. And the only thing I would do was after using the nutmeg, the dark brown, on the flower centers, I would just kind of lightly wipe that away before I went on to the second panel, just to prevent me from getting like, you know, blending a bunch of brown ink all over the florals. I don't mind a little bit, but you know, I didn't want a whole bunch of that. So I just worked my way through both of these backgrounds doing all of these layers. So I've got my, you know, bright red colors and then the cranberry colors and then that spice cider for all the little florals. And then I was just using just a little baby blending brush for the flower centers with that nutmeg ink. So that was the first 3 stencils on this stencil set because it comes with 4. And I talked about this when I did my release and review live video for the Stamp Timer release at the beginning of the month. And I was going on about this stencil set because I was like, oh, it's going to be a favorite, which, yep. And the last stencil has just all these little dots that just kind of fill everything in. And I was like, ooh, yes, 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 yes. I was like, this is perfect. And it is. You could just use this stencil on its own just to add, you know, some little dots to backgrounds, things like that. But I immediately was like, this is just meant for paste. That's what it's for. That's what I'm going to use it for. And that's what I did use it for. So after I was done all my stenciling of the like florals and everything, I used this last stencil in this pack, and I'm using Lunar paste in Slippery and Wet, which is just a bright gold color. So applied that over the stencil with my palette knife. And I forgot to mention, because I was going on like random rambles about ink and everything else. All these stencils have etch lines on them around the pattern. They're sized to, as you can see, fit an A2 panel. These panels of cardstock are A2 size, so 4¼ by 5½. And Simon did another stencil set recently. It was was it the September card kit? One of the recent card kits. And there was a similar stencil set, like florals, and it was A2 sized. And I am loving that. It just makes it so easy to do an entire like card, you know, everything's lined up. I don't have to worry. It's like, oh, what am I going to cut off? You know, it's like, it's all size centered, you know, everything's ready to go. So love it. And yeah, all the stencils have that etch line of the A2 card panel. So that's what I was lining up each time with the background, and it just made life easier. So I applied that stencil paste over the backgrounds, set those aside to dry, wash my stencils, and then while that paste was drying, I die cut scraps of white cardstock. I die cut some of Simon's matte gold cardstock, and I die cut some Schoolhouse red cardstock using the Fancy Giving Thanks wafer die set. Again, love. So I stacked the white cardstock layers together to give dimension. As, you know, Laura Basson says, dimension is life. That is, you know, one of the rules. It just is, you know. I had one of you comment and they were like, I love your rules. And I think I forgot to respond, but it was like, you do know I break them all the time. When there's rules, and then all of them are meant to be broken. And I tell you guys the rules, and I tell you guys this is how it should be, as while I show you me breaking them. But that said, dimension is definitely one of them. It's just a good rule because it just makes everything look better. So stacked the white cardstock together, 2 layers of that with craft tacky glue, topped it with the die cut from the matte gold cardstock. And then the outlines I had die cut from the Schoolhouse red cardstock and adhere all those together. So I've got my die cut sentiments for these cards. So once I've got everything adhered, I was like, you know, the paste was dry. I could finish the cards. Like, I was going to keep everything a lot more simple. And then my brain is just like, but what if? What if we do this next? What if we do that next? So I was like, so yeah, could have just stuck these on the card fronts, you know, finished the cards and been done. But splatter had to happen. So the paste was dry. You know, I've got the little gold dots, which are technically splatter, but I was like, it needs more. So I pulled out Rusty Hinge distress paint, just a nice orange. Rusty Hinge is just perfection, especially for fall. Oh, anyway, put some of that on a palette, watered it down a tiny little bit just to make it more splatterable. Picked it up with my little fan brush and splattered these, and it is subtle. Like on camera, you probably can't see it as well, but it's just there. It's, you know, again, do I need to explain why I like splatter so much? It adds texture and all the things, and it's just perfect, you know? So splattered both of these backgrounds quite heavily because it's a subtle color. If I was doing, you know, like white or black or dark brown, I was going to do dark brown, but the Rusty Hinge one, I would have gone much lighter with how much I added, but yeah, when it's more subtle, you can add a lot more. So there's bonuses to all that. So anywho, set those backgrounds aside again to dry. While they were drying, I pulled out the oldie but goodie. It's another old set that I've used a lot. The Say It All Friend stamp set that there's so many good sentiments in this set. And it's still available. It's been around for a while, and I've used it in many videos. And I just pulled out a scrap of white cardstock, and I heat embossed one of the little sentiments from it with gold embossing powder. So I used my anti-static powder tool, stamped the sentiments with clear embossing ink, covered them with Simon's Gold embossing powder, melted that with my heat tool. And then I'm using my sentiment label wafer dies to die cut these sentiments. And then I decided for the insides of the cards that I would do the same thing with the thank you text background. Yeah, the thank you text background and the fossil ink. So I just took 2 more panels of white cardstock, inked up the stamp, pressed the panels into that. Doesn't need to be perfect. Not worried about it. I just want that, you know, the texture. And then if you really stop and look, you can see like the thank you phrases, etc. And then I also decided to use that fossil ink to ink blend around the perimeters of these. So I had trimmed down by this point. My backgrounds are dry. Like the paste is dry, the splatter's dry, everything. And I trimmed these down just a little bit. Like I think they're like 4 inches by 5 1/4. And I also trimmed down the panels that'll go on the inside. And then I just grabbed a blending brush and just blended that fossil ink all around the edges. It goes on a little bit darker. It's going to dry back and be very, very subtle, which is exactly what I wanted. Just that subtle little bit of shading, you know, around the edges. And of course, you see it more on these panels that'll go on the inside because there's not a bunch of pattern and color and everything else. So I just quickly went around the perimeters of these, and then once I've got those blended on the inside, or the panels that are gonna go on the inside, I'm gonna stamp another sentiment from that Say It All Friend stamp set, which of course I went for the big thankful for you sentiment from that set, because I was like, perfect, say no more, that's just all that needs to be on there. So I lined that up. I put this in my Misty and line that up, and I'm inking up the stamp with that cranberry ink that I use for the blending. And the Concord inks, like I said, they're very similar to the Simon inks. It's the same type of ink pad as well, and they're very, very juicy. You need to just tap very, very gently when you are actually inking up stamps with them. I honestly haven't stamped a whole lot with them. I use them more for like ink blending and that sort of a thing. But when you do want to stamp with them, you just lightly tap. You don't want to press these types of ink pads into your stamps, because if you do, like, ink is just going to gush absolutely everywhere, and that's where you'll get, you know, blurry images, etc. So I stamped those onto those inside panels, and then the panels for the outside, I put my Big Mama foam tape on the back of them just to give them that little bit of dimension. And yeah, everyone's been having a good laugh. I deserve it. I've been laughing at myself. I mentioned that in a recent video, like me losing my massive roll of Big Mama foam tape. Oh man, I didn't lose it. It was just 2 feet from my face and I couldn't see it for the life of me. But I've been working harder since that day, which wasn't that long ago. It was just a couple videos ago. But I've been working harder at like not missing it, because I use it on every card. I'm not even kidding. I was wandering around my entire craft space trying to find that roll of foam tape. Like, I thought I was losing my mind, you know? Like, it was just like, how is this possible? How is this possible? Anyway, it made its reappearance right in front of my face where it was the entire time. And now I'm using it, of course, again on all my cards. So I popped up those backgrounds with that foam tape. I adhered the insides with the craft tacky glue. And then the die cut sentiments I adhered also with craft tacky glue. And then the little sentiment strips that I had heat embossed and die cut, those I'm going to pop up with little thin Waffle Flower strips of foam tape, just so they can kind of pop up above the dimension of the layers of the die cut sentiments. So I got all that done. As always, you could end here, but of course I have matching embellishments. I've got the Trinity Stamps Cinnamon Red Hearts. I actually need to order another pack of these. I use these a lot because they're just perfect for so many cards. Like a little red heart, it's perfect. So I put a few of these onto each card front, and then I just adhere them with little dabs of craft tacky glue, and the glue will dry clear. So yeah, they're just, the little hearts just end up looking like they're kind of floating, and I love it. It just goes with the color, you know, the color combo, the thankful sentiments, etc. So put little dabs of glue in place, adhere the little hearts. I always try to make sure that I get them like while the glue is still wet. You know, you've got a little bit of time to center them, straighten them up, that sort of a thing, and then I let them dry. and these cards are complete. So like I mentioned in the intro, I will have a link below the video to my blog post. In the blog post, I'll have the color throwdown link, and you can check that out if you guys want more inspiration or to play along, all that fun stuff. And I'll have the supply list below as well with links to all of the supplies I used. So you can just check that out below if you are interested. And as always, I appreciate you all so very much for taking the time to watch my videos, for thumbs upping and commenting. It helps so very much, because it really does. It just tells those algorithms you guys like what you see. So I appreciate it. Subscribe if you haven't. I'd love to have you, and I will see you all very soon in the next video. Bye.